Hey everyone, Brent Insider here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode where we're exploring my music collection. I've got over 12,000 CDs in the total collection and I cover all different genres and musical types within it. But for this one here, I thought we'd explore what's in my heavy metal collection of 1,500 CDs. So we're going to get into that here. I'm going to try to break it all down because I've got it in different locations and stuff, but it all comes together as a really cool collection of stuff that I'd like to share with you guys, and we'll do that in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you're gonna stay up to date on everything going on in the world of music, just like this, where we're taking a look at what is in my 1,500 CD heavy metal collection. And so now I've got it in a lot of different ways. And if you've seen some of my other episodes where I break down my musical collection, including the one that's what's in my 12,000 CD collection, they kind of understand this format and how it is that I organize and break stuff down. And so I do like to keep a general selection of stuff out on the CD walls like you see behind me. But then I've also got stuff that's in boxes like these that are all of one artist collection or one particular type of subgenre within that bigger musical one, in this case heavy metal. I've got other ones where I break them down and separate them out like this. And so we're going to go through the boxes first, and I'll try to give you the overview that way of some of the biggest artists that I have that I pull off of the wall and actually way to make more space on the wall for other artists that don't have quite as big a collections. And so one of the biggest artists and, forefathers of heavy metal is Black Sabbath, and I keep them in one of boxes like these. And these kind of boxes, when filled, hold 90 CDs in them. So this one here, not quite all the way filled, plenty of room to grow, but I've got my Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne collection in here. And so I thought we'd start off with that, considering they are the archetypes of heavy metal. What better way to kick off an episode on heavy metal than that? So I've got some deluxe editions in here of the first couple albums, 2 CD sets of those. I've got the regular remasters of the rest of the ones from the Ozzy Osbourne era in here. We go on through, and of course I've got stuff from Ronnie James Dio in here. This was one of my favorite albums for a very long time because I really got into Black Sabbath through Ronnie James Dio when he first came back and rejoined during the Dehumanizer era. But from that, going back and getting Heaven and Hell. So for a long time, that was my Black Sabbath before Ozzy Osbourne. And Ozzy, for me, was a solo artist, so got plenty of that. But we got the Mob Rules in here. I've got a cool, well, at least used to be like an internet only through Rhino Records. Rhino handmade a live album that's featuring Ronnie James Dio. I actually never opened it because it's so similar to the Live Evil album that they've got. I've got a box set of this with the new remix on it that's really good. Born Again, when we had Ian Gillan of Deep Purple come in. Incidentally, we've got deluxe editions of that album. This one here that had Glenn Hughes singing on it, 7-star, and of course Eternal Idol when we had Tony Martin come in. But I've also got those as standalone ones that are in here as well. And so we've got 7-star in here, just different versions that come out. The deluxe editions with the 2 CD ones, have the bonus material, so that's always cool. We got Tear, and this just keeps on going on up. I showed you Dehumanizer. Cross Purposes is a personal favorite of mine from that era. And it just goes all the way through to the last 2 things that they put out. Well, actually not that. Must have slid over. There we go, 13 and The End. But using that one, they are a best of from Ozzy Osbourne, one of his latest single disc collections of stuff like that. But can't have an Ozzy collection without Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. Speak of the Devil, which has never been reissued after this version of it here. So still got that while I've got newer reissues of Bark at the Moon, which is my favorite of the early Ozzy era stuff. Finally picked up Tribute. Actually didn't have that for a long time. Love Ultimate Sin, but same thing. Never gotten a proper reissue of that or just say Ozzy. So that's why I've got these odd versions of it like that. No Rest for the Wicked. The first one was Zakk Wylde. Absolutely fantastic. His big farewell at the time, but also kind of big comeback album. No More Tears album. Osmosis, when he finally did decide to make the comeback at that time. And this for me is at least where it started to separate and kind of go downhill, because he was no longer working with a band writing material the way he was with, Zakk Wylde and stuff like that. But Down to Earth, made a covers album, which is all right. We had Black Rain, and then Scream, a tour edition, so a 2 CD edition of that I really enjoy. And then we're getting into Ordinary Man and his latest album. And I got a bunch of other stuff in here. I got some Tony Iommi solo stuff that's in here, stuff that he did with Glenn Hughes, 2 albums in fact. And then we got the Heaven and Hell album that was essentially the Dio era reuniting again for a 3rd time doing this, and a couple live albums from those guys. But all in all, a killer Black Sabbath collection to kick things off. And again, just kind of an overview of this stuff to sort of give you guys an idea of what there is. I'm going to put this aside and pull out the next thing here, because another band that definitely defines heavy metal, and I've got their own box for them. We are talking about Iron Maiden. And so I've got lots of stuff in here. These are the 2 CD editions that came out on Castle Records back in the early, mid 90s maybe. So I've got 2 CD editions of those that have the bonus B-sides and things like that. Peace of Mind, which is a personal favorite of the early era. Power Slave, the first album I got by Iron Maiden. Classic Live After Death album, which I owned back in the day too. Somewhere in Time with Wasted Years, a favorite song. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is an album I've never really been able to get into. I know it's a classic for a lot of people, but for me, No Prayer for the Dying was the first album that came out after I'd become a fan of theirs, a new album. And so really love that one. Love Fear of the Dark. Got a bunch of other live things. And then, of course, we had Blaze Bayley coming in with X Factor, which I personally still think is an absolutely fantastic album. Virtual 11, which is good, but nowhere near as good as that first one. The Reunion with Brave New World. We got a bunch of best ofs and some more live stuff in here. Dance of Death. Death on the Road, there's a live album. Another couple best ofs. A Matter of Life and Death. The Final Frontier, an album that I think was absolutely fantastic. One of the classics of the newer era of the band. They've been doing a bunch of live and archival things like this one here, Made in England 84, or 88 actually, I think that was. Book of Souls, and then Senjutsu, their latest album, which now I think that was 2019. So can't believe it's already been 5 years since we've had new Iron Maiden. But within this box, I got some other cool stuff. Paul Di'Anno, Dennis Stratton doing Iron Man. I've got the first Di'Anno solo album from the original frontman, and I've got his project Battle Zone. And then we've got ASAP, the Adrian Smith project, and another thing he did, Psycho Motel, a couple of those, Steve Harris, British Lions, and of course we've got all the Bruce Dickinson solo albums that are in here. And then I've got some of the newer reissues, which sound really great, picking up 3 albums that I never thought had good sound before and needed a classic remastering, so I've got those. And again, just trying to give you an overview of the stuff that I've got, not really go album by album. Now, I talked about having also some of these boxes that I do as genres. So I've got 2 boxes here and here that are of the new wave of British heavy metal, which is a classic era, styling of music that I think is really, really good and totally worthy of having, its own breakout area. At some point, I'd like to break down my heavy metal section into having a thrash section. And just as a point of clarity, I don't think I mentioned it up front here, but I do not group glam metal with heavy metal. So I have a whole separate video of this, my 1200 CD collection of glam metal, whereas right now I'm doing a 1500 CD review of heavy metal, which has traditional metal and new wave of British heavy metal and thrash and progressive metal and stuff like that in it. So that's where we're going. But this stuff here, a lot of this is neat records. So Aragon, I've got, of course, classic stuff from Angel Witch in here. That was newer stuff, but I'll pull out the classic debut album with the classic song Angel Witch, which Metallica brought to my attention at least. Adam Craft, Avenger. That was a newer Avenger. Because I'm going from top down instead of bottom up, which is actually the way that these things are. But I've got a lot of Budgie stuff. That's the last album that they did. The Last Stage, which was unreleased material that they put out, which was really good. But I really like their late 70s, 80s output like this here. Night Flight, Power Supply, those are really good. I've also got some box sets of Budgie. Squawk is a really good early one. And they're another band that Metallica covered with Bread Fan. Blind Fury, which has the lead singer from Satan in the group, and Blitzkrieg. Bitches Sin, which is a really good band from this era. Pull out some of the earlier looking album covers for you guys to see. Here, talking about Blitzkrieg. Let me pull that one out that I just had here. So, you know, Blitzkrieg. And here we've got Bronze. So the new wave of British heavy metal is a really kind of wide swath of stuff where some of this stuff does sound like glam, actually sounds like even AOR melodic rock style stuff. And I do keep that with this because of the new wave of British heavy metal, grouping all that stuff together. Chariot is another good one, but there is some stuff mixed in here that I normally wouldn't do it if it wasn't part of the genre that falls under it. Cloven Hoof, some of the heaviest stuff that I listen to. Diamond Head, going back to the original stuff. I've got some of their stuff out on the wall, which we'll see in a little bit. You know, the CD racks around me here. So you're going to see some more of that sort of stuff. Turn the Hell On from Fist, which is really, really good. Band underrated. Gaskin, which is another band that had some tie to Metallica. That's actually what brought me to a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal, is some comps that focused on all the stuff that Metallica had covered and calling a new wave of British heavy metal collection. And that, you know, is what turned me on to it, realizing I liked a whole bunch of this stuff. But Girls School, some of their classic stuff is in here. I got a box set of theirs. Another band that Metallica covered being Holocaust. And they actually covered something off of this album, the live album here. The Small Hours was the song that they did, but I've got a bunch of stuff from them. Hellenbach, that was supposed to be a Van Halen type band. Another one that, again, related to Metallica, Jaguar, because obviously Lars Ulrich is a big, big fan of new wave of British heavy metal stuff and early singles, so he brought a lot of that. But Legend is another cool one. Mammoth, having John McCoy in the lineup. I got some John McCoy. Nightwing, this is one of the more AOR melodic rock sounding bands that are within here. We've got, let's see, pull out the right one, going all the way back to 80 or 81, Praying Mantis. That lineup did not, but later on, Dennis Stratton, guitar player for Iron Maiden, playing in Praying Mantis for quite some time. Raven, pull out some early Raven here, but that was a newer one. Stuff like that. So that's, we get up to R in the end of this box after running through 90 of those. And I pull over the next box here, which continues things out. And we pick up with some more Raven, going back to All for One and Until You Drop, or Rock Until You Drop. Sweet Savage, band early on that had Vivian Campbell in the lineup, that again, Metallica covered the song on here, Killing Time. Interesting note, later era version of it, with this album here having Simon McBride, who is now currently the new guitar player in Deep Purple. All right, Savage is a really killer band, Loose and Lethal. Again, related to Metallica covering them. We've got some offshoots of Saxon, like Son of a Bitch in here, which was the original name. We've got Satan, which has the lead singer from Blitzkrieg and Blind Fury. A bunch of their stuff in here. Later eras with a different singer. And then I got some reunion stuff that's in here, because they're a band that I think sounds better today than even back in the day. I've got some Paul Sampson and other Sampson-related releases, going back with a lot of different singers in the group. different than, of course, who I'm going to talk about now, being when Iron Maiden frontman Bruce Dickinson, as Bruce was fronting the band and singing with them on these three releases here. This one here having Riding with the Angels, a pretty killer song there. I've got a whole slew of Saxon-related stuff in here. Strong Arm of the Law, Denim and Leather, Innocence is No Excuse. And again, that goes on. I have the entire Saxon collection. Group called Trespass. Really, really good stuff. I don't know that they ever put out a full album. Thunderstick, who was a member of Iron Maiden, on drums for a while. Tyson Dog, which is really, really great. Got some Tigers of Pantang, latest stuff in here. In fact, I got the entire collection of stuff. I go back and have a box set of their stuff that has the early albums like this one here, Spellbound and Crazy Nights. And then I've got some later stuff where they did Wreckage, and they became, less of the metal sound, but they, were part of it too. And then Tokyo Blade, really good stuff. Going way back, a bunch of cool stuff from them. We've got some stuff from Tank, of which, again, I've got a box set from these guys. Witchfind, and got a number of things. These guys are kind of heavy, almost on the black metal, death metal side of things. Witchfinder General, Warfare with Evo. It's got some punk leanings. White Spirit, which has Janet Gears, who would go on to play with Iron Maiden. And Metal for Mothers. This is a compilation of new wave of British heavy metal stuff from back in the early day. And then I talked about some of those comps that got me into this, the Neat Records stuff. So a 3 CD version of it here, plus some other double disc versions of it, having lots and lots of stuff. So if you're interested in testing out the waters on more new wave of British heavy metal stuff, that would be the way to do it. And continuing on, I want to keep moving fairly fast here because we haven't even hit the CD wall, but I have a whole box of Dream Theater stuff in here. And I'm not going to go through the individual albums because I have all of that, but I've got some rare stuff from the fan club, like Taste the Memories, this live show from 2002, Dark Side of the Moon, where they cover and perform the album in its entirety live. Undercover, spanning from 2003 to 2005, a whole bunch of cover songs that they do, their rendition of When Dreamin' Day Reunite, so a reunited lineup to perform the anniversary of that. The Images and Words demos, and now they have the Lost Not Forgotten Archive series, which is putting a bunch of this stuff out, like this one in particular, the Falling into Infinity demos, which has a double disc worth of stuff. So it was only a single album that came out, but if you buy this, you can get a double album of what it could have been. Then I've got a whole bunch of those Lost Not Forgotten Archive series things in here. And then, of course, jumping into the actual albums themselves, kicking off with When Dreamin' Day Unite and running all the way through this album here. And I'm trying to think if there's one after that or not, but I know that they've got Mike Portnoy back in the lineup, and so I'm looking forward to that. Whole box of Loudness, the Japanese metal band. And I've got some cool stuff in here, including the drummer and some solo stuff that he did, Minetaka Higuchi, and Free World 2, which again is the drummer doing some cool stuff. We've got the lead singer of the original lineup of the band doing a solo album called One, Minoru Naihara. Kicking off with, I've got some of the other stuff as well, but I have other boxes. I actually have some miscellaneous metal that I haven't filed in out here on the wall. 3-4 boxes worth of that stuff. And so I know I've got the early Loudness still in there because it doesn't fit in this box. As you saw, this thing is already packed to the gills. So in here, it kicks off with that. And it moves in with some other things, some collections and stuff. A lot of Wounded Bird Records stuff. Jealousy, a cool 5 or 6 song EP. Hurricane Eyes, when Mike Vasara came into the lineup. Loud and Rare, another Japanese release. And then, man, they moved into the 90s doing all kinds of stuff, changing frontmen, doing different projects and things. Pandemonium. all the way up through some of the more recent stuff. And this, I believe, is their latest release. It's a double album, which is Sunburst. So pretty cool there with that. Got a whole box of just Megadeth stuff. So I've got the original album MD45, which was Dave Mustaine, or Mustaine Dave, and then the 45 was the Leaving LV Roman numerals, turn it into 45. So that's how they came up with it. But this is with Leaving of Fear singing versus the re-recorded version, which has Dave Mustaine singing, finally turning it into essentially a Megadeth album. Different versions of Killing Is My Business. Business is Good from over the years. I've got the double CD reissue of the Peace Sells But Who's Buying album. Hidden Treasures, Japanese album called, I think it's called Live Tracks. The original mix to Risk. Promo only CD, single CD for the box set that came out called War Chest, which I have that as well. Here's another version of Killing Is My Business. And then we get into the remixes of this that Dave Mustaine did. So the Peace Sells, and that goes on. And then some best ofs like Capital Punishment, other killer albums when you see Live, and then The System Has Failed, United Abominations, and it just goes and goes and goes up through Dystopia, not Utopia. And I've got the latest one, but again, those are sitting in boxes that grouped up from the last few years and have not made their way out to the wall. Metallica box here, their new one, still sitting out from last year's release. I got this one, and Justice for Jason. It's a bootleg, but it basically adds the bass back into the mix. And since Metallica doesn't look like they were ever going to do it, I bought a bootleg that's doing it. I've got some other cool promos and things that they've released over the years. A double CD, selections from Live Shit, Binge and Purge. Kill 'Em All, of course. I've got the original masters, original releases of these albums here. I've also got a Jump in the Fire. This is Creeping Death, Jump in the Fire CD EP that they did. Master of Puppets. I understand this one's quite valuable now. Never would have thought CDs would have the same kind of value for a few $100s that vinyl versions can, but they do. The original $9.98 CD. The cassette was the $5.98 EP. Of course, Injustice for All with no bass for Jason Newsted. The famous Black Album. Got this cardboard slipcase that holds both the load and reload in there. Another promo only. This was a radio station release that was called Saint and Anger. So songs that were called on the Saint side versus songs that were on the Anger side, but it was basically for mandatory Metallica. S&M, Garage Incorporated, Saint Anger, and another mandatory Metallica 03 radio promo sampler. This is basically the only way to get best of for Metallica. Their EP to some kind of monster movie that has a remix of this song that basically gets rid of all of that stuff and turns it into a normal sounding Metallica song. Death Magnetic, Lulu, which was just a side project, but I keep it in here. A bunch of like record store day only releases. Live at Grimey's, 6 Feet Down Under EP, the 6 Feet Down Under EP Part 2. Beyond Magnetic, which came out to celebrate their, I believe, 40th anniversary at the time. Hardwired to Self-Destruct, the triple album there. Through the Never, the soundtrack double album. Here we go with another, I don't know if this was a website only release, but Live at Bataclan. Metallica and Symphony 2. Released just from their website, which they do. This is the Helping Hands concert, which is acoustic, that has a lot of cool covers on here. When a Blind Man Cries is on here. Please Don't Judas Me. Turn the Page. Veteran of the Psychic Wars from Blue Oyster Cult. Lots and lots of cool stuff on here, making that worthwhile. Got 3 more of these to go, and we're going to jump onto the wall. Queensryche box. So I've also got some Jeff Tate stuff in here, solo album that he did, the Operation Mindcrime triple release that he did, trilogy, I should say, kicking off with the EP, which with the added live stuff turns it into a full-length album, because these are the reissues. The Warning, Rage for Order, a personal favorite of mine. Of course, the classic Mind Crime, and the Breakthrough Empire, and Live Crime, the whole Mind Crime album performed live. But I always go back to Promised Land, which I really enjoyed. And then I got some more radio promos, Road to the Promised Land. So early best of collections that were released to radio stations that were there to promote the tour. Here in the Now Frontier tour, or Here in the Now Frontier, which I met them on, Jeff Tate and Chris DeGarmo, but Here in the Now Frontier tour, another promo release done to promote the album and tour. Q2K, which I saw the band live on. Live Evolution, saw the band live for that one too. Greatest Hits. Tribe, when we had Chris DeGarmo come back to the band briefly, although he didn't tour with them. The Art of Live. Operation Mindcrime 2, which no way sounds like the original stuff, but whatever. Mindcrime at the Moor, performing both albums in their entirety. Double album best of from the band. Take Cover, their cover album. Dedicated to Chaos, which I really enjoyed and was the last album with Jeff Tate, although he did his own version of Queensryche on that one, Frequency Unknown. This album doing a little out of sequence here. I can see that these slid around in here. And I've got 3 of the latest albums, although the latest from Queensryche, again, is still not filed into the box just yet. But I got that one. That one is the most classic sounding to the Empire era of stuff that they've released, in my opinion. A whole Savatage box for you guys to get going into here. I'm going to start off with some stuff from, I got some Trans-Siberian Orchestra in here, which is what the band turned into. I've got some offshoot stuff like Circle to Circle that the band has done, different members, then John Oliva's Pain, and various things that he did like that, along with Dr. Butcher, which is John Oliva, Oliva, which is John Oliva and his brother Chris Oliva, songs that were created and done after his passing. I've got a bootleg of pre-Savatage stuff from when they were called Avatar, so the Avatar years. And then we kick off with some good stuff here. Sirens and Dungeons Are Calling. And then moving into stuff like Power of the Night, when they kind of started to change their sound a bit. They went more radio friendly with this one here, which is Fight for the Rock, before coming back hardcore and restoring, their claim to the Hall of the Mountain King here. Gutter Ballet, my first Savatage album. I met those guys, luckily. Then we got Streets, a rock opera. Edge of Thorns, the first one with Zach Stevens. And again, you can see I met the guys on that one as well. Lots of cool record store, in-store signings that bands would do back in the day. They just don't do today. Handful of Rain, the only album with Alex Skolnick from Testament. Alex Skolnick from Testament in this live recording, Live 94. Dead Winter Dead. We go on with some other cool stuff. Ghost in the Ruins, an archival live album from Chris Oliva. Wake of Magellan. Last one was Zach Stevens. I got a couple different best ofs that came out with a lot of cool archival stuff on those. And what is so far the last Savatage album, Poets and Madmen. I've got a box set version of that as well. And then there is still the orchestra plays a 2 CD greatest hits package. And as we wrap up the little boxes here, we've got Suicidal Tendencies to run through. And I've got a bunch of different stuff in here, some related stuff like No Mercy, for which Mike Muir fronted the group, his side project, The Infectious Grooves, and all of their stuff, solo stuff, Psycho Maiko, and a Japanese only release, the Madman Mirror musical tour, some Infectious Grooves and Psycho Maiko live, and then we get into actual Suicidal Tendencies, Institutionalized, Join the Army, my favorite of the early releases, How Will I Laugh Today If I Can't Even Laugh Tomorrow, the Controlled by Hatred EP, but my favorite and first time I saw them live, Lights Camera Revolution, And when they tried to go sort of radio friendly with this album here, The Art of Rebellion, still psycho after all these years, re-recording songs from the debut, Suicidal for Life, where the first 5 songs all have the F word in it. Prime Cut's an actual best of the Suicidal Tendencies, if you can believe that. And then they kind of got into doing a whole do-it-yourself sort of stuff. So some cool EPs came out on their own record label. Freedom, that's still Suicidal. Another one here. There's some Infectious Grooves later on in here. This is a Psycho Myco, Infectious Grooves, Year of the Psychos, whole thing where basically he was doing, they will do some of these sometimes, where he does different projects and they each record a few songs and they put those out on their record label. 13, which is a fantastic comeback album for them. World Gone Mad. Get Your Fight On, which is just an EP, being the last thing the band has done. And then this one here where they re-recorded the Psycho Myco album. And then this was kind of a cool little compilation that Wynn put together and done, if I can do this right. Oh, have to try and figure out how to do this. I can't remember now. But bottom line, this thing folds up and unfolds, and something about, oh, that's what it is. If you do this and you plug this thing in right, then this thing will stand up and do that. But I don't like to do that because I don't want to bend it out from what it is, but a cool little compilation that was a European release. And so can't believe that took 30 minutes just to go through all of those boxes like that. But we've covered, I don't know, around more than 500, 700, 800, give or take. I don't know how many we just covered in all of that. 4 white boxes and 6, 7 of those 30 CD boxes. But now I'm going to reposition us so that we can get against the wall and take a look at that stuff. All right, so we're over here on the CD wall finally. So this one here and the one that's directly behind me is all part of the heavy metal stuff. It's what I've got out. It's sort of the sampling of stuff. So I've actually got more than the stuff that you see that's here. And if you've watched some of my What's on the CD Wall episodes, you know I've covered the first 2 rows of this, and we'll go kind of fast through that. But there's definitely more stuff that I've got than what's here. This is just sort of the creme de la creme that I like to keep out. But Anthrax, Among the Living. I'm going to get into some more Anthrax here in just a bit, but I've also got some Accept on the wall. Breaker, or that one there was I'm a Rebel, but I've also got Breaker. I definitely like the early stuff from Accept. The classic Balls to the Wall. My favorite album of theirs is Metal Heart. And I've got a bunch of other stuff, the reunion eras, with both Udo and the later era of the band with Mark Tornillo. But we got some Anthrax in here, Armed and Dangerous, and of course Spreading the Disease. My favorite album of Anthrax, though, is actually State of Euphoria. And so, love that album. Definitely got into the band with Sound of White Noise, but over the years, and as much as I love John Bush and from Armored Saint, I'm now more a fan of the Joey Belladonna era, even though John Bush got me into the band, and I love what they did. Here's actually another band, Acid, a female-fronted band that's really good. Talking about Armored Saint, March of the Saint, Raising Fear, probably my favorite album. Delirious Nomad I've got from Rock Candy Records as well. Got some reunion era stuff. La Raza is a really good one. We've got Carpe Nocturnum, their recent live album. Got some Archon Angel, which is a Zach Stevens from Savatage side project. We got some Arch Mathos in here. Fate's Warning Guys. Got some more Angel Witch over here that I didn't have in the New Wave of British Heavy Metal box that I probably should have. Alcatraz with Graham Bonnet. Love those guys. A bunch of stuff from them. Another Animal, which has Whitfield Crane of Ugly Kid Joe fronting them, but this is definitely more metal than the hair metal stuff they did. Belladonna solo album from Joey Belladonna. Beyond Fear, featuring Tim Ripper Owens, who fronted, Judas Priest and some of his stuff. From Blaze Bayley there, from Iron Maiden, a couple other things just sitting out on the shelf here. I've got a bunch of stuff, including this one, War Within Me, which I really, really enjoy. Of the earlier stuff, though, I really like Silicon. Well, I pulled Silicon Messiah out. Blood and Belief is another absolutely fantastic one. So I love all that sort of stuff. We got some Black Thorn down here, which is another Graham Bonnet project. And we've got some Rex Brown, bass player from Pantera. Biohazard. Some of the early, mix of hip-hop sort of sounding stuff. I mean, they certainly partnered up with Onyx and did some stuff like that, but the sort of new metal sounds were starting to come in with all of that. Black Label Society have all their releases over here as well, just numerous ones in here. Got some more Circle to Circle stuff that, again, should be with the Savatage releases, but quite honestly, there's just so much stuff. I can't even keep it all together sometimes. We've got some Cavalera Conspiracy. So the two Cavalera brothers from Sepultura. I got a bunch of that stuff. Some Chastain with Greg T. Chastain on guitar. Making that stuff popular. Culprit. A lot of guys were surprised to see that when I showed that one other time. Cycle Sluts from Hell. Very interesting band. All female. Corrosion of Conformity. Cyclone Temple, some cool thrash. Charred Walls of the Damned. This one here fronted by Tim Ripper Owens. 3 albums that they did. Some newer metal. Cauldron. Sounds like some new wave of British heavy metal style stuff. They've got a bunch out. This is their latest album, which I happen to really like. And I haven't heard anything from them in quite some time, but New Gods is really good. I've got a Damage Plan in here, which is Pantera. Pantera offshoot. I mean, Pantera was done when that came out at the time. Got some Death Angel, my favorite. Act 3. Got some of the newer stuff over here in a box set that has the earlier albums. Got some Down, featuring Phil Anselmo from Pantera. Got that debut Diamond Head album that I was talking about earlier that isn't, in the box, and there are other 2 classic era albums as well. All right, moving on to the other wall. Got some Damn the Machine. So Chris Poland, after Megadeth, doing this project here. We got some Dio on the wall. Inferno, a live album. I've got the whole catalog, but it's actually in a different room, so we're not going to get bothered with that. This is a bunch of live and compilations and stuff like that, so we're going to skip over that. We have a Kevin DuBrow solo album in here. We have a really cool underrated thrash band called Damn, D-A-M. They've been reissued, so you can pick that stuff up. Andy Duras, the lead singer from Halloween, having some solo stuff. We've got Exciter in here, Canadian speed metal. Exodus in here. Gotta pull out Bonded by Blood. I know you guys will ask me about that if I don't show it to you. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff going up through Persona Non Grata, their latest album. Enforcer, one of the newer traditional metal bands out there. Early Man, throwback to new wave of British heavy metal sounding style band. They got a couple things. Some Fate's Warning in here. My favorite album of theirs, Parallels. This sounds very much like Queensryche. Got a bunch of their stuff. Fight with Rob Halford, debut album. Follow up where I got to meet the band and other cool things. I got some Flotsam and Jetsam in here. I've also got the original stuff where Jason Newsted was part of it, but this album here, Quattro, when I got to meet the band in the early 90s. Tons of cool stuff there. We're going to jump down to the line below. I know you can't really see it as much, but Grip Incorporated. This one here had Dave Lombardo in part of the band. That's what drew me to them. They put out 3 albums. I've got some Gamma Ray in the collection down here. Some Grim Reaper. And we've got some Gwar. Until this got reissued, this one was a pretty valuable, hard to come by album. Hello. This one here, Let There Be Gwar. That was a website only release. green jello. Before they had to change it to green jelly, so I've got that. And I've got their follow-up 333 instead of 666 and some other stuff in here. Got some Ghost in the collection. We've also got Hades. And then we move into some Halford, the debut, absolutely fantastic return to form after Fight, and 2, the Industrial Project, doing some really great stuff. We've got Todd Michael Hull doing a solo album, frontman for Riot 5, absolutely fantastic voice. Hellion, Hansen, which is Kai Hansen from Halloween and all the projects he's done. So this is a Japanese best of collection that's got Halloween, Gamma Ray, Blind Guardian, Heaven's Gate, Angra, Michael Kiske, and Iron Savior on it. All stuff that he contributed to. And we move into the Halloween stuff. Walls of Jericho, absolutely love that album. Of course, the classic Keeper of the Seven Keys 1 and 2. And moving on through to the stuff that had, totally spacing, Andy Dearest is in the lineup, and a bunch of other stuff all the way until we get the reunion and the big like triple guitar lineup, cool, with Kai Hansen coming back, Michael Kiske, all that sort of stuff. We get some Iced Earth, and this one here is with Tim Ripper Owens singing. If you can't tell already, I'm a big Tim Owens fan. I did pick up some other stuff, Framing the Armageddon. Got some Impellitteri in here. Rob Rock, Chris Impellitteri. Got some offshoot stuff from Municipal Waste, so Iron Reagan, featuring some of those guys in it. I've got Judas Priest in a bunch of different areas, including a box set that holds their 12 classic albums. But I got early stuff like Rock'n'Rolla over here, Jugulator with Tim Owens. I know a lot of you guys hate it when I say Tim Ripper Owens, but hey man, that's his name. Demolition, that one has some bonus tracks on it. Got some Kill Devil Hill, which has the bass player for, I think it's Rex Brown from Pantera in that. We've got solo James LaBrie from Dream Theater in here, and Mole Muzzler and some other stuff. And we move into some Lizzie Borden down here. I got a bunch of Lizzie Borden. And then Killer Thrash band Laz Rocket. If I can get that stuff out to show you guys. More classic era Laz Rocket releases. There you go. Got a little out of sequence down here. I'll have to get it back into order. This is kind of an interesting one. This one is called Love Monster, and it's pre-Monster Magnet stuff. So somebody had the rights to it and could put it out, but it's demos from 1988. Then I got other Monster Magnet stuff that's down here. Tab 25. Spine of God. My favorite though, Super Judge. Man, I was like, heavy, dirgy Black Sabbath. Very, very cool when I first heard that stuff. Medication, band that had Whitfield Crane singing for them again from Ugly Kid Joe. Mad Max, bunch of their stuff. Got some Manowar in the collection as well. Love that album. Move into Lord of the Steel. I think this might be their last album. I could be wrong. Ministry, though. Early tracks. Greco Records releases. And those green discs and side tracks. And the Sphincter. A bunch of other remix albums and stuff like that. And we're going to go ahead and slide on over here so that I can get to the rest of this. How's that? All right. Keep on going. Motorhead, Bomber. I've got a box set of Motorhead too. Of course, the classic Ace of Spades. Move on through. I love 1916. That was my first Motorhead album. This cool Angel City promo, live recordings from back in the day. Then March or Die, some other stuff. I mean, I got the whole thing all the way up to there is Motorhead stuff. Talking about Municipal Waste, Electric Brain, their latest album, so good. Mortal Sin is a group that doesn't get enough love. Great thrash band. Metal Church, debut release. The Dark, which is so good. Blessing in Disguise. Going on through that stuff. More Monster Magnet related stuff. I don't know why Monster Magnet is separated. In fact, I'm going to move it so it'll get back down to the right area. Machines of Grace, Zach Stevens of Savatage, another side project of his. Moving into some Yngwie Malmsteen. And I got a bunch of his stuff too in other locations. I do have what I call the Wall of Wonder that is in my bedroom. And it has a little bit of everything from alternative, traditional rock, heavy metal, thrash. It's all there. So a little bit of everything. And I got some Yngwie over on the wall there as well. Nonfiction, offshoot from Hades. Newstead. Man, Jason Newsted did this project and it was so good, and he only made one full-length album. Nuclear Assault, Game Over. Personal favorite though, Handle with Care. And I always loved Something Wicked. That's what got me into them. A New Revenge, which has Tim Ripper Owens singing. Back down here, we're kicking off with some Overkill. Got a huge section of Overkill in here. Got that album, which includes the EP, Feel the Fire, and Fuck You and Them Some. Years of Decay. Horoscope. A little out of order here. Under the Influence. So bunches of cool stuff of theirs. Wings of War, but their latest album, Scorched, is awesome. Tim Ripper Owens, see? Solo album from him. Chris Poland's solo album, instrumental guitar, really good. This is Return to Metropolis. Pride and Glory really probably shouldn't be over here, but Zach Wilde, he's over here. Black Label Society's over here, just kind of grew into being here. Pink Cream 69 featuring Andy Duras, who would go on to front Halloween. I don't know if I have anything else out on here, but here's a Praying Mantis with from the Michael Shankar group, the vocalist from during that era, Gary Barden fronting, and Dennis Stratton playing guitar. So that was one of my favorite ones. Pantera, reissue of Cowboys from Hell. My favorite one though, Far Beyond Driven. Got to meet those guys. Got some Prong, Prove You Wrong in here. Their breakthrough stuff like Cleansing and Rude Awakening, when they almost were going to break through, never quite did though. And then some later era stuff from them, a covers album. Axel Rudy Pell, ballads. I got a bunch of those out here. I got a lot of the stuff from his collection. He's an amazing guitar player, and the band itself is fronted by the lead singer from Hardline, which is a group that had Journey guitarist in it. So again, maybe not so much so should be here, but Axel Rudy Pell is kind of like Yngwie Malmsteen. So I think it warrants being out here, but it does have a bit of that tie to the glam metal stuff. All right, this is kind of cool, man. I got Quiet Riot, first two albums only ever issued in Japan. These are just super high quality boots of it, but Quiet Riot 1 and 2 in here. Randy Rhoads years. So this was Rhino Records putting together a compilation of these first two albums that have Randy Rhoads on it. But of course, they would break through and everyone would think Metal Health is the debut album because it was the first album in the US. And then I've got their whole catalog. I've also got some Pretty Maids in here. And I've got some Quartz, and I was a little out of order there. Stand Up and Fight. The debut Quartz album actually has Jeff Nichols in it from keyboard player with Black Sabbath, and that's what drew me to them. They're part of the new wave of British heavy metal. Riot 5, So the band that has Todd Michael Hall that I showed you the solo album from earlier, great stuff. Ravage, one of the newer metal bands that's out there. And then we've got Reverend, which has the original singer. Is it Mike Howe singing? No, I can't remember now. Who is the singer here with Reverend? No, it's David Wayne. David Wayne, original singer with Metal Church. That's why it's called Reverend. Ross the Boss, offshoot from Manowar type stuff. We've got Rods. And this is really just good straight up hard rock, but it's not glam. It's not regular rock. It ends up on my metal wall. So I know there's some variation in the stuff that I have here. Rock Goddess, some more, well, actually take it back. I don't know that they're new wave of British heavy metal. They may be Canadian, I think. Resurrection Kings, 2 albums from them. Canadian band Sword, a couple of their releases. Scatterbrain, their 2 albums. Michael Sweet solo stuff from Striper. Moving in up, got another Scatterbrain there. In God We Trust, starting to kick in with some Striper. This was my favorite because it was the least. This one is called Against the Law. And they basically just took a straight ahead, hard rock approach to it instead of the metal approach, and they dropped all of the lyrical stuff, the religious lyrical content while they were doing that. Sunbomb, which is Tracy Guns and Michael Sweet. Snow, which has Carlos Cavazzo from Quiet Riot. Moving to some Slayer. Hell Awaits. Live Undead, had to get that because I got the figures. Rain and Blood, good stuff, but my personal favorite, South of Heaven. First album I got from them, though, Seasons in the Abyss. A lot of other good stuff, got their whole catalog all the way to the end. Sepultura, Schizophrenia. Arise. Personal favorite, Chaos AD, that was my first album. Still love Roots, and I got all their stuff too, going up quite a ways. Sacred Reich, one of the first metal bands I ever met. Took a long time to be able to track these down before they were available, but there you go. You can see the signatures on this one, or maybe you can or you can't. But the first album they put out after I met them was this, Independent. Great, fantastic album. And then they didn't do very much. They put out Heal, and then they broke up. And I do have the reunion album. Here it is. Great stuff. Can't recommend them enough. If you've never checked out Sacred Reich, do check them out. They're super, super good. Got some Soulfly in here. Newer Soulfly. David Schenkel Group, guitar player, offshoot from Manowar, doing stuff. Got some more Tigers of Pantang over here on the wall. Again, just can't keep it all together. Not enough space. But these are some of the newer things that I reach for. Tobruk, another new wave of British heavy metal band. Tommy's Rock Trip. And then TT Quick, the band that Mark Tornillo is from before joining Accept. Trust, the French group that did Antisocial first for Anthrax. Trouble, Manic Frustration. And this album here, Plastic Green Head. Moving into some Testament, The Legacy, the band used to be called, and then had to go by Testament instead. New World Order. My favorite, though, Souls of Black. The Ritual is what broke them through for me, though. And then kind of lost interest when they did Low, and he turned into Cookie Monster vocals on that. Tons of stuff up through Titans of Creation. The album was kind of lost during the pandemic. Got some Typo. Never been a big fan of Typo Negative, but I do have a couple things. Their final album, Dead Again. I was starting to get into the band, and then unfortunately, the lead singer died. Glenn Tipton, Baptism of Fire. Another Glenn Tipton album, guitar player from Judas Priest. 2, the side project with Rob Halford. It was industrial. Got some Tool out here, even though they're really more alternative metal. Right. Always love that. Bunches of other stuff from them. Lateralus, and then the most recent one, which is the 10,000 Days, and the one that came after it, where they don't fit anywhere because they're such unique sizes. Unisonic. We got two guys from Halloween doing this, the singer and guitar player coming together, Kai Hansen and Michael Kiske. Uncle Slam, really great thrash metal band. A couple of their albums in here. Solo Udo, this album, Animal House, was supposed to be the next follow-up album, so he took all that music and just made a solo album instead. Mean Machine, and I have a ton of stuff from them. I've also got Verney, Dee Verney, and this album, Barricade, bass player from Overkill. Joey Vera, bass player from Armored Saint. We get into some Voivod. This is To Death 84 and Roar. I really like this album here, Nothing Face, and its follow-up, Angel Rat. We then get into some Eric E. Forrest, Chronic, Phobos, and Negatron. And before we start getting back into having the reunion stuff I'm looking for, is it this one? Yes, where Jason Newsted joined Voivod, which was a very cool thing when that happened. I wish he would just stay with the band and do some metal stuff, related stuff. Vicious Rumors, which has Gary Moore when he was shredding. We've got some Warlock over here from Doro. We've also got some more Vicious Rumors. World War III, Mandy Lion. As I said, I got some Zakk Wylde. The acoustic stuff really shouldn't be on the wall. I get that. Winter's Bane, Tim Ripper Owens singing. And then Wolf's Bane with Blaze Bayley singing right next to each other. Bunch of that. Get into some Rob Zombie and White Zombie down here. And we'll finish it up with a little bit more Warlock stuff. And that's it, man. That's running through the whole thing. I hope you enjoyed seeing a sort of big swath, a cross-section of all the different metal albums and bands that I listen to. And again, just remember, this isn't everything. I've got a ton of stuff, but try to give you a little kind of cross-section of what it all is. And there you go. That is what's in my 1,500 CD heavy metal collection. All right, everyone. Take care. Have a good one. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.